Put the gravel back together again. Good evening. It is January 9th, 2025. It is 7 o'clock in the evening. This is the meeting of the Mendon Conservation Commission. My name is Carl Hummel, Chair. The members will now introduce themselves.
Bob Sweet.
Susan Cahalan, co-chair. Meeting.
And that may be Peter coming up the stairs now. Nope. Okay, and Peter may be showing up later on. The first item that we will do on the agenda is good and welfare for the public, where members may speak of the matter that they wish to bring to the attention of the Conservation Commission.
Can't hear a word you're saying.
Microphone.
Speak a little louder. Or use PAs.
Okay, I will try and project. Meeting is called to order. The first item that we will bring up on the agenda is good and welfare for the public. This is an opportunity for people to bring matters to the attention of the Conservation Commission. We would not take action on them, but we would discuss later on about asking our agent or ourselves to look into it further. I do note people that are probably interested in 23 Cape Road. We will be having a lengthy discussion on that later. Is there anybody else online or in here who wishes to speak about another property? Okay, I don't see any hands raised online. So we'll move on to agenda item 4. Notice of intent for 27 Pleasant Street, DEP number 218-0860. This is at the request of the applicant will be continued. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Say what it is.
Continue the public hearing, 27 Pleasant Street, DEP number 218-0860.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? We have a nice motion sheet that our agent spends a lot of time doing, so I want to take advantage of it.
Well, where is it?
It's the second page.
It's mentioned DEP number of the address. We found.
It's the second page after the agenda.
Yes.
It says motion sheet.
I think you're going too far.
Okay, so any other discussion? Since we are all here in person, we can take we do not need a roll call. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Let's see if this is coming up the stairs now. Yep, it's Peter. Looks like you're going to be sitting over here this time. So please introduce yourself.
Peter Coffin, Solo Road.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, notice of intent for 29 Pleasant Street, DEP number 218-0861. Same situation. It's been asked to continue while they do more work. So I'll entertain a
I'll
motion.
make a motion. To the public hearing for 29 Pleasant Street, DEP number 218-0861 until the next public hearing on January 23rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I think Tim got there first. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, I'll mention that. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes. I'm going to go slightly out of order and skip to agenda item number 7. Request for determination of applicability for 133 North Ave, MN number 25-001. Because it's a request for determination of applicability. It's not the regular DEP number. We also have a request to continue this for a future meeting. They have asked time to respond to comments and questions raised by the Mass DEP and by our conservation agent. So entertain a motion.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing for the RDA at 133 North Ave until the next public hearing on January 23rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Was there just a quick discussion?
Okay,
Are we gonna schedule site visits sometime?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be on Thursday. I'm waiting for time. So next.
Next week, Thursday?
I think at 9.
Not this.
But I'll send out.
the expected timeline is they would come back with an updated RDA or decide to submit an NOI instead. Once we get their new narrative, then it makes sense to go out and then they can go through and point out what they're discussing in the actual paper. So that's why we didn't schedule it for this week. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I will also skip ahead to agenda item number 8, request to extend order of conditions at 5 Morrison Drive, DEP number 218-0820. We had a surprise in our email this week. It turns out that the Massachusetts government has decided to once again extend permitting. This is a carry-on from COVID when everything got all bottlenecked. And the language, the actual proposal is the last page of your packet. And that's not the actual proposal. That is a write-up and an analysis by someone who was working with the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. What this means basically is that we do not have to hear their request to extend their order of conditions. We're not sure exactly what the wetland, Mass DEP has not said exactly how the Wetlands Protection Act permitting process will be impacted by the recent state decision, but we felt there was no need to have them come in and go through the permitting process tonight. So that is that is tabled until such time as they feel the need to seek a permit request.
Mr. Chairman, can you clarify the number of that? Was it item number 9?
Agenda item number 8, request to extend order of conditions for 5 Morrison Drive.
Mr. Chair, the way I interpret it though is that.
Oh, okay, well then it's different in the motion sheet than the one I was looking at. That would explain the confusion. Okay, so yep, on the actual posted agenda, it's number 9.
So if the state in their wisdom,
They
an
extended.
extension. Right, so then that makes so that their permit is extended for 3 years.
2 years.
To, it had been finished on the 3 years from 2022, was good until what, October 2025?
Yeah, they were in early.
So.
So now they get 4 years
They-
after
3
that.
years onto that, or I don't know how it just, yeah.
It'll be 2 years longer than 25, so October 2027.
And when DEP issues their controlling regulations to tell us specifically how to interpret it, then Isabella would be able to pick a particular date.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So with all of the stuff we're not doing tonight, we can now switch over to something that we are going to be talking about this evening, and that is agenda item number 6, notice of intent for 75 Blackstone Street, DEP number 218-0863. We have people here to speak to that matter.
Is your engineer coming? Oh, Peter.
Okay.
Here, Lavoie.
Yep, come on up to sit here so you're closer to the mic in case you end up speaking on the matter. So, Peter, make your
Yes,
presentation.
Yes, good evening. My name's Peter Lavoie. I work with D&L Design Group. I am here representing Fred Simmons, who is the homeowner at 75 Blackstone Street. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you should be able to do it.
Okay. So, can everyone see the plan?
We also have paper copies.
Okay, so, the project is located at 75 Blackstone Street. Blackstone Street runs along the bottom of the page. We were here in 2022 for the builder, for Kevin Lobiser. We did get a certificate of compliance at the end of 2024. So currently what exists on the lot is the existing house is in the center of the lot. There is an existing driveway to the left. It's an attached garage. So the driveway to the left accesses the garage on the left of the house. We have an existing septic system in the front yard, existing well in the backyard, and the rest of the lot, as you can see, is a field with a stone wall that wraps around the lot, and the tree line is probably 4 feet off of that stone wall. So that is that area is currently a field. So why we're here tonight is my applicant would like to construct a second driveway to the right of the stone wall and the right of the house. He has 2 garage doors on the lower level. So this is kind of like a drive under on this side. All the work is outside of the 100-foot riverfront area. We did revise the plan from the one I originally submitted to the board because we had the driveway much further down and also within the riverfront area. And also there is a 20 by 12 shed in the backyard. That was on the as-built that we submitted for the certificate of compliance, but it was not originally on the original notice of intent. So with this additional disturbance, roughly 1,036 square feet for the driveway and the 240 square feet for the shed, we come out to roughly 10% riverfront disturbance. So I have added a table to the plan, which is below at the lower area, where it shows what the new NOI disturbance is compared to the original NOI. So originally we had 8.7% that we were disturbing of the riverfront. We had no disturbance within the 100-foot riverfront, but we had disturbance within the outer 100-foot. So we do increase disturbance, but we are still below that 10% that is allowed. So that's the reason why we're here tonight, is to get the approval on constructing that driveway to the right. That's basically it.
First thing I'll raise is DEP issued comments on this project. Did you review their comments, and could you respond to them?
I did review their comments. We have updated the filing fee. Originally, we felt that this was an intermittent stream. We had taken pictures of the stream dry, but we did it, and we didn't know that it was in a drought condition, so we didn't file it as an intermittent. We didn't file it as a perennial. We filed it as an intermittent. So then we found out that it was in the drought, and DEP had made those comments about being a perennial, and you need to do the 1.5 fee. So we have sent the additional fees. I dropped off the additional fees to Isabella today, and we also mailed out the additional fees on Monday to DEP. I also did an alternative analysis that they had asked for. I had submitted that originally, and looks like we're doing alternative 2 out of the 3 alternatives. We had 3 alternatives. 1, we do nothing, but my applicant really he really needs this driveway to get to the lower garage. The second one was what I presented today, moving the driveway as close as we could to the septic area, coming in, and then still being below that 10%. And then the third one was the original submittal that accessed the field from where there is an existing curb cut there now. There is an existing opening in the stone wall, and sight distance is much better in that location and safer. So that's why we originally went with that location. But because of the comments from DEP and after talking to Isabella, we decided to move the driveway as far up as we could to get to those lower garage doors, and that's where we are now.
So the plans that you had up on the screen and people have printed out, is that alternative 2 or 3?
That is alternative 2, yes. Yep. The numbers are a little bit different with the disturbance because I had to add the shed after talking to Isabella. She commented that the shed wasn't originally on the original notice of intent. So I decided to add that disturbance as well as the driveway. So the numbers are a little bit different, but I do have the 10% disturbance within that riverfront area.
Okay,
Do you want to know, the check that was dropped off was for the legal ad and the bylaw. I'm still missing the 1.5.
I have that.
You have it.
Yeah, Fred said he was going to bring it to the meeting.
okay. I'd like to let the commission know that it was not an oversight with him thinking that he could submit as an intermittent stream because DEP retroactively to September 1st said the drought took place. And that would have been after he did his work. So we shouldn't hold that against the applicant or the designer, the engineer for that particular issue. So next I'll go for staff comment. Isabella?
I've put some of my comments in and I've, mentioned them with Peter, but I'll just point to the regs, which say that when you're altering 10%, the commission can only alter up to 10% of a riverfront area, and provided that 100-foot wide area of undisturbed vegetation is provided. And currently, since this is an open hayfield, there isn't that. And so I would suggest to the commission some sort of permanent marker for the wetland, for the buffer zone and 100-foot riverfront area be put in, boulders or wetland boundaries. You may also want to consider deed restriction that nothing else can be developed because it is at that 10%.
Okay. Something I'll ask the homeowner and you is, you said that the plans that we have now is for alternative 2. Are we not going to be considering alternative 3, or is you just coming and asking if you could pretty please go with that and come back with a new plan in the future?
No, after the comments that I received from Isabella and DEP, I talked to Fred, and Fred agreed that this is the final plan that we would like to submit, alternative 2.
Okay.
And no further disturbance would be proposed because we are at the 10%. So there, he wouldn't be coming back after this.
Okay, so alternative 3 is not being, you've decided to not consider that. So the 2 alternatives that the Concom would decide is 1, don't do anything and you just get stuck with having built his driveway doors on the wrong side, or alternative 2, which we're looking at now. Okay, so we've heard comments from our agent. Okay, I see a hand raised.
Couple of things. I thought we were, if it was a riverfront,
Can you go a little louder?
sure. Sorry, I don't have much of a voice right now. If we're talking about riverfront, isn't it 200 feet?
There's 100-foot and 200-foot Yeah, so riverfront is different than a buffer zone. It's an additional resource area.
Okay.
So it's not, it doesn't have the same performance standards as a buffer zone.
Okay. First, sir, I commiserate with your plight. I spent many a Sunday at a car show growing up, and we had lots of antique cars. I totally understand where you're coming from, and that's a hardship for you. I do think the one thing that we're forgetting about is the effects that a non-permeable driveway is going to have on the stream down the street, because what's going to happen is you'll have a long driveway, an impermeable, unless you're making it permeable. I haven't seen that in the plans. That's going to slope down into the street. The street then slopes down all the way to the stream. And I know for a fact last spring when the other two houses were getting built, which are uplands, we had some sedimentation events that happened there. So you're kind of creating a situation where there is going to be a sedimentation event into that river, because I've seen it. Your driveway will slope down, the street will slope back. All of the water picked up from the driveway and the street sediment debris is now going to flow down into the stream. So that will make the amount of water exponentially increase. And it goes, I drove by today, it goes right down into the street at that point. So I feel like if we allow this driveway, there is going to be a sedimentation event that happens. I mean, we get a lot of rain. And at that point, do we have any recourse? Because we've allowed this driveway. And the other thing is DEP.
Would be, let's just do that one first. So my first response as a layman is, well, can you modify the plan to say that when you build the driveway, you'll control the stormwater runoff?
Yes,
That-
so
Can you do that in a way to express Leia's concern?
I can comment on that. So the way the driveway is graded is no runoff from this driveway will go out to the street. There is a low point that in the middle of the driveway or at the end. So all the runoff is going to come into the center of the driveway and then go through that 100 feet of grass. And then it would go to the stone wall and then into a wooded area. And then it would get to the stream. So there will be no runoff, and then, we can ensure that there'll be no runoff from this driveway going into the street. It can't, because this is a drive under, so the lot slopes down and not out to the street. So, I just want to clarify that no runoff from the driveway will be going out onto Blackstone Street. It'll be going through the field.
Okay, so we can look at your plan now and do one of two things. Either the members of the commission who are familiar with stormwater control can say, yes, this plan will meet that, or we go and ask for an evaluation from an outside consultant. So,
I haven't been on site either to see any of this except driving by, obviously.
right.
So we haven't had a site walk there to make any real determination.
Well, we had a site walk at a previous time, and if they do let's see what other people who are familiar with stormwater say.
Plan's fine.
Pardon?
I think the plan is fine. It shows it.
Okay,
That's picture.
so you believe that if when Isabella does her site walk for the certificate of compliance, she would be able to look at the driveway, you would be able to go out and say, yes, the driveway won't contribute stormwater runoff to the street.
Downtown, where the
Okay,
driveway is.
So the existing conditions, you can see the elevation on the existing conditions, so you can
Does it
see
give you a
it.
street elevation? And where-
I'm talking about, can I speak? So you can see the elevations going right through, the topography going right through the driveway, and then you can see here where it has,
I've looked at it.
yeah,
I'm talking about
the 346, so everything is shedding to the grass. And then it has 348 high over here as well. So all he has to do is make a berm here and nothing will go onto the street if it's constructed the way Peter's saying.
and the second question that Leia raised on this is if there is stormwater runoff, what would the Concom and other town departments be able to do in response to that? Is that something we'd issue an enforcement order about, or if stormwater runoff was flowing into the protected buffer zone?
I mean, you can have, if it's contaminated or
Yeah.
just stormwater, you shouldn't have, your driveway shouldn't be discharging into the road.
Okay. Okay, so is that something the highway department would take up if that happened?
Well, if it's impacting a resource area, the commission would act.
Okay, so there's an answer for Leah, that if your worst case scenario that you're outlining happens, that the driveway for whatever reason floods out and gets into the stream, then we would be able to take action.
Okay, I mean, it's happened before on the other two plots.
Mhm.
So we've already had 2 sedimentation events into this river. I'm just not willing to
Okay,
have another one happen. I've seen it.
I understand what you're saying, and I went there on the first event, and those other two lots are elevated. They've got to be 10 feet higher than the street, and everything washed down, and all the sediment came down to the low point of the road. This is a different situation, though. This isn't up like that. This is a very flat, and it's sloping toward the grass field. It's not,
The
so,
street itself, though, if you take around,
I know.
the street goes all the way like this back to the river.
right,
So
but
that's
this,
what I'm worried about.
yeah, this won't dump onto the road. It can't, this is lower than the driveway. Those other ones were up high, and the sediment ran down the driveways and ran down the street to the low spot. I hear what you're saying. This is the same situation as those two lots, though.
okay, so we'll go to Peter.
Just a background question. So I gathered this house was built just recently, new house. And you have a garage up front, and that's your existing garage that you use. Now, in the existing house where you're wanting this proposed driveway to I guess doesn't have the elevations, but if your top of concrete is 357, I'm assuming it might be at 349 and the grade is at 348 there.
That
So
is
are
correct.
are there doors there already? Garage doors?
Yes, there are.
Okay, so you came to us with an original proposal with a driveway there. DEP, and we told you, no, we don't like a driveway there because it's on the wetland. Please put it on the other side. You did that, and now you're coming back saying you need a second driveway because you have need of access to your basement where you don't have a business, but you have a hobby of home. So, okay, thank you for that. Could you, as an alternative analysis, alternative 3, I know you don't want to drive on your septic system, but if it's not actively being used too much except to get your car in and out, one question I'd have, what is the driveway going to be? Is it paved? Couldn't it be a California? Couldn't it be gravel? Couldn't you maybe extend it around the back so that you wouldn't have all this impact in the 100-foot buffer? You would just be extending your existing, would have one less cut on the road. Just as an alternative.
Couldn't there be some permeable asphalt?
Yeah,
So that we could,
how is the driveway to be built? It's not detailed yet.
I mean, what we're proposing is a paved driveway. I mean, I could talk to Fred and see if he wanted to, do a portion of it as, pervious and a portion of it that's impervious, but him and I would need to discuss that.
I guess I'm trying to say, how busy is this second driveway?
That's his-
That's my
that's-
business too. I have a
I don't
access
see a,
that I
I
would
don't
like.
see a problem with what he wants to do.
Don't interrupt Peter. Let him finish the sentence.
I have-
You can raise
I
your
have
objection.
an issue with increasing access on the road. So if I have a driveway with a driveway cut, I like to drive over my driveway to get up to the basement. And okay, but I don't ask for a paved driveway up that. I ride on my grass. So it's a function of how often you need access to get to that, your back entrance. And to have 2 formal driveways and asking for the second one when we didn't give it in the first time. I'm not seeing the need necessarily that overcomes the impacts to the buffer on doing the work in the buffer.
Okay, so now
Can I make a comment?
I want to get Mike's response to Peter.
So,
Okay, you're deferring to Tim.
first of all, the builder built the house and proposed this driveway at the time because it was gonna be a garage under, I'm assuming, because that's the topo of the land. So then, if we said, no, we don't like it over there, and we made him put it over there, he had to build that whole section up to do that. This isn't this gentleman. That's all I'm saying.
My question is, who's the builder? Who
So-
designed it? You didn't have input into the design of the house?
So can I finish?
Well, that's just a question.
Secondly, he meets the percentage of disturbance in the 200-foot riparian zone by statute. Okay? If this gentleman would like to put a driveway, he meets the criteria. Now, do we, some of the questions that are good points that Isabella made is, should we have him mark the inner riparian zone, the 100-foot with some markers maybe, so there's no disturbance, any further disturbance. So that way they know whether he stays there or he sells the house, there's gonna be monumentation saying nothing beyond this point. I think that's a good point that Isabella brought up. But if he meets the criteria, why shouldn't he be able to put another driveway?
Meets the criteria. He is allowed to, if we allow him to, up to that maximum. That's not a criteria. That is a
It's a
maximum.
threshold.
It's a threshold, right? So he's
Right.
under the threshold. So it's still up to us as to whether we think the impacts to the wetland is balanced by his need and desire for the use of his property.
I agree 100%. The reason why I'm speaking about it is because the site itself, and everybody knows it probably, it's all heavy sod over here, grass. There's not going to be any impact. If there was impact, I would agree with you 100%. But there's no way anything's getting through 100 feet of hayfield through a stone wall. So
You're biffing 15 feet of stone wall that's within a 100-foot buffer. I happen to like stone wall.
so don't I. And there's an opening further down that he proposed to go through that was existing. But now he has to move up to get out of that zone. So he's making every effort to make it a better plan, in my opinion. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
So if he takes the stones and he's gonna make that opening and puts them in and closes the other opening, it's a,
I agree.
No,
That
not-
that was what I was gonna suggest.
Are there,
because I like stone walls too, but again, you can't make cars jump over them.
okay, Isabella?
does a tree have to come in the opening that's proposed?
Say
It
that
says
again.
tree, it says tree line, so
It
it's got
says
a tree
tree
there.
line, two trees there that have to go down.
It looks like there's a couple of small trees there, yes.
I don't see trees, I just see tree line.
Okay.
Right, because they're not picked out.
Yeah, that's not
So,
much.
so any
Yeah, there-
further,
Yeah.
go on.
No, I mean, the tree, are you talking about the tree line along the street?
Yeah.
No, yeah, so during the summer, that becomes very thick. So when we went out there to do the survey, we don't locate the individual trees, we locate the edge of the tree. So that area kind of expands during the summer. During the winter, all the stuff dies, so then you go out there and you see the individual trees, but it does get pretty thick during the summer months, from spring to fall. So, and then, Peter's comments regarding, putting a driveway along the front, it's like a 8-foot difference in elevation. So to create a driveway around the septic system would wipe out all of that vegetation and do more disturbance, I think, than just cutting a 12-foot strip at the stone wall and going straight in at the same elevation as the bottom of the driveway. So those garage doors that are on the right side are basically at the same elevation as the roadway. So you're going straight in, level, and if you went around the top in the first driveway down to the bottom, you have to make up 8 feet in grading. So that wouldn't work going around the back or going down the front of the lot. You would do more disturbance and he would lose that privacy. The stone wall, would be affected because you'd be grading right up to that stone wall because you can't really change the grades on the top of that septic system or at the breakout elevation on the downhill slope of that. So that's why we decided to come right up at the same elevation as the garage doors. You know what I mean?
Right. Peter, I knew that it was not right to go across the front yard. My proposal was to go off of the existing
Okay.
driveway and come around the
Peter,
back.
he's not
which
able
is
to,
no grade.
he's not, I will make a proposal later on. But first I wanted to say we'll stop discussing this particular point. I wanted to go back and see if Leah had a second point that she wanted to raise.
I just think that there was a reason why DEP didn't want us to put this here. And even hearing, I feel like when I've seen the reports, it's gone from 8% to 9% to 10%. And now we're at the threshold of what we're supposed to be doing in that resource area. So I'm just wondering, is there room for error now? Do we have any buffer? Is it going to end up being 11 or 12%? You don't know what you're going to hit when you go to pave a driveway, especially around here where just everything is ledge. And I still just am very nervous about any water discharging onto the street there because where it may not be a slope that's on the driveway causes water to be exponentially. It's the street. It's that the street slopes back towards
Okay.
the river.
All right. So here's my proposal for the engineer and the homeowner. What I would request is that we would continue this for 2 weeks, and between now and then, we would have a site walk. What I would ask is that before we go out for the site walk, you set up little flags so that when we go out, we can take a look at where your proposal for alternative 2 is, where the ground would be sloping. You could explain the construction techniques you'd use so that our building experts could agree that, yes, that's going to protect the stormwater runoff. I'd also ask you to explore with the homeowner what kinds of pervious pavements you might use. If it's only going to be used for classic cars, which are probably lighter than the big ones we have now, would it be possible to not have the structural integrity of the driveway if you're only using it for intermittent use on an occasional basis? Is that something that people are open to?
Yeah, I mean, Fred and I can talk, and then Fred and I can talk about, the monumentation, either, like a fence or boulders along the inner riparian zone. I can, Fred and I can talk about that as well. Just to get to the question that she had made about, I have a couple other things. I could add some additional grit spot shots on the driveway, so it's more clearer that the grading goes into the lot and not out. And then on the last thing, I know she made a comment regarding, is it going to be 11% at the end? So what would happen at that point we would stake the 100-foot in the riparian zone. We would stake the paved area, and then we would have to do an as-built at the end to ensure that we haven't increased any of the disturbance within the riverfront. So before we get our certification or a certificate of compliance at the end, we would have to prove to the agent and the commission that we were at the 10%. And we could show that on the as-built as I show the table that's on the plan in front of you. And that's just my, I'm trying to just make it easier for her to understand that, there are steps that can be taken to ensure that we don't go over the 10%. And I just want her to know that, that's all.
Okay, so that would be investigate a final determination's done with an as-built at that time. And if you're up to 12%, we wave our finger at you and you have to go and fix it so you're under again.
Correct. They would have to remove the pavement, or, and then
Okay.
restore the area back to where it was.
The final thing I'd ask you to discuss, in addition to boundary markers, would be some sort of deed restriction or a condition that, since you are now at the 10% limit, no further work would be done unless they did some kind of remediation that's allowable within the WPA and the regulations.
Okay.
So, are any input from the commissioners? Are you comfortable with,
I'd be more than
This
happy to go on a site walk, so I think that.
Yeah.
and if you are able to flag your proposed driveway, that would be a big help.
Okay.
So, if there's no further discussion, someone can make a motion. Okay, could you say that out loud or louder?
Recharge area for the downspouts of the roof, that's already in there. Recharge area,
There's one off
it's
to
on
the
the plan,
left.
yeah.
There's one off to the left beside the shed.
Yeah, that's
That's why he's
right.
asking what that was. Is that in the ground or?
It looks it.
Yeah, that's in the ground. That was proposed originally, and then because of the grades, you know, we put both of the areas in that location there. So
Okay, if there's no snow on the ground, we'd be able to take a look at that as well. Any other features on the plan that commissioners are interested in? Okay, so we have,
I make a motion to continue this to our next meeting and schedule a site visit for.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? No? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank
okay,
you.
Thank you.
Isabella, please reach out to Isabella and see about scheduling a sidewalk, hopefully when it's not below freezing.
Okay.
The thaw between now.
Like March.
No, it's June, these days.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now up to, that completes the public hearing section, and we'll now move on to the discussion for agenda item number 8, 23 Cape Road, DEP 2180838.
I have it as 5, but it's okay. I can pivot quickly, make.
Well, the number 5 in the motion sheet is incorrect. It's probably an artifact from cutting and pasting. The published agenda says that's number 9.
Okay, it's the same place.
Yes, so we are going to review the enforcement order that was issued last month, and here review the update report from the peer reviewer we hired to Fran Wang. The actual text of the report is in the motion sheet. I had Isabella print out the first 2 pages for people in the audience to take a look at. So if you could bring that up, and if you come on up as well. My understanding is that our agent, Deshang, and your specialists went out and all looked at the site corroboratively, so. We are not paying Deshang to be here tonight because Isabella was there for most of the site walk, so she would be able to explain parts of the report that commissioners have questions about. So go ahead with your presentation.
Good evening to members of the commission. My name is Sean Baggett.
And for members of the audience, since we're not mic'd, if you could speak up.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Sean Baggett. I'm Vice President of Development and Construction at Blue Water Property Group. With me today, I have RJ Lyman, who's our permitting attorney, and Tom Simone, Head Project Manager with Arco Design Build, who's the project's general contractor. On the phone, or on the screen rather, we have Connor Downey, also with Blue Water, SVP of Investments. We have Dan Wells with LEC Environmental Consulting. And we have Kevin Demers with DePreet Engineering. And we thank you kindly for giving us the opportunity to be here with you tonight and talk about this project. Pleased with the commission, as the chair did say, we did provide a presentation that we'd like to walk through this evening, and then hopefully be able to respond to any questions or comments following that. So again, just to touch upon the enforcement order, full transparency, we were just a bit surprised when we did receive that enforcement order. We're proud of the impact we've had on site to date. I know there's been a lot of historical frustration, but we feel that we've improved the site since day one of Blue Water's involvement. Really, the two main ways that we've improved the site from the beginning was to address the watershed that was coming off of the abutting properties by installing a very large, very long riprap swale right along the perimeter of the property. We've observed and monitored closely that the water coming onto our property is now being discharged in a very clean manner. So we're very proud of that. The second thing that we did to improve the site early on with our involvement was to deconstruct the existing outfall that was within very close proximity to the wetlands. We backed that up pretty far and constructed a new outfall. So we feel that from the beginning, I know there's been historical concerns, but our involvement has been an improvement, and we'll get into the event that happened on December 11th. And then just circling back to a couple of the conservation meetings that happened in December. One of the reasons we were surprised, and we'd just like to take the opportunity to explain ourselves. We weren't there for the meeting on the 6th. So when we did get the enforcement order.
That wasn't a big clue, like it's the day after Christmas, we might want to go. We made a special meeting, we all showed up.
Yes, ma'am. And again, when our heads were spinning a little bit.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, please. We were like, what happened? So we went back and watched the videos online. And this commission was very clear. You stated multiple times that we were to be here or we were going to get enforcement order. And due to the holidays, due to a miscommunication, what have you, for multiple reasons, that information was never relayed to us. And I assure you that we would have been there. So we just meant no disrespect by not being in attendance. We do care. We do take this extremely, extremely seriously. We would have been there on Christmas. We just didn't know you wanted us there. We thought you just wanted the report. So I just want to start by that.
And I will say that part of the failure to communicate was on my and Isabella's part to express that prior to the 26th. And one of the sentiments expressed during the 26th was, by God, this will get their attention. Well, I look at the high-powered and high-priced people here at the meeting, and I think we got their attention.
Yes, you did.
So continue with your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. I just didn't want that to get us off on the right. We've been there on Christmas.
Those of us with small children.
I mean,
Others for the sketch, you know.
So that's what I want to say about the December 12th meeting. And then again, we did take the time to watch the previous meetings that we weren't at. On the meeting on the 26th, the commission did vote to issue an enforcement order. One of the points that we just wanted to discuss, just to make sure we were kind of being clear about the impacts of the project and how we've been working and how we've been addressing things. The word repetitive discharge was included in the order. We looked inward, we were honest with ourselves. We said, okay, what during our project could have been considered an initial discharge? The only thing, in the next slide, please. The only thing that we could think of in terms of our project was an event back in August of 2024. So back in August, as you may or may not recall, we were doing water line work. So the conservation agent, Isabella, shared concerns regarding sedimentation event during this water line work. And what our work involved draining the Whitney Street water line to the existing catch basin. So this is right before we took out the existing catch basin on the west end of Whitney Street. As I hope would be attested to, as in this instance, as in every conversation, we've been very responsive, very proactive. We immediately responded to all the questions forwarded to us by the conservation agent. We confirmed that there was no sediment or erosion control breaches. We provided SWIFT reports, we provided material certifications. And we confirmed that all protections observed during the agent's previous July 11th visit were in place with the addition of that swale that we were happy to install. Then the following day, the site was inspected, the perimeter controls were observed. The agent also observed the operation. No breaches were identified. The agent also confirmed that nothing of concern was noted besides that slight turbidity of the water in the stream bed. So this was not, at least as far as we were concerned, based on the communications we had at the time, considered a discharge. So we just wanted to make sure that in terms of our project, those were the only two, this date and the December 11th date were kind of what we were tracking to. We just want to continue in the spirit of transparency.
Okay, my recollection from August is that there was a report from abutters that there was outflow. We did have Isabella go and she did talk to us at the following meeting about that it was part of water line work. Isabella, is that your recollection as well?
Yeah, and that's what I think was in there.
Yes. Okay, so are you comfortable with what they're having up on the screen right now in the language?
Yeah.
Anybody else on the commission, do you have any different recollection or do you have any disagreement with their narrative up on the screen now?
Just one question.
Yep.
When you bought the property, was it disclosed to you that there had been sedimentation events that had happened before?
Me personally, I'm
No,
not,
as a company, if you're speaking for the company, then
I can't speak entirely for the company unless.
Connor.
I can,
And Connor might be able to.
yeah, I can. I'm not sure I know what the phrase sedimentation events, we were aware that the commission had some concern about the prior owner's management.
did you also know that the prior owner was going to do a cleanup of the wetlands downstream, downhill from that? And that hasn't been done as of yet.
It was our understanding that that had been done by a company named Braza Construction.
Yeah, I can speak to this confusion because I investigated it further after talking with Connor. What happened is that we did not, since we don't like issuing enforcement orders, we did not issue an enforcement order against the previous owner. Therefore, there was no legal paperwork attached to the sale that your due diligence work would have been able to encounter because we had nothing on the deed, nothing encumbering and requiring the previous owner to do something. That's why they were surprised when we came and talked with them last year and said, oh, by the way, we're expecting you to clean up what Abe didn't. And so we're now in a area of let's try and come to a resolution of this that doesn't involve town council and your lawyer having a long argument in court over the matter.
And in fact, actually, if I could, I think as you hear not just from us, but you also hear from your peer reviewer about what the conditions are.
Yes,
today,
we'll get to that later.
what going forward might look like to get to the situation we all want to be in, which is no damage to the wetland resources and also adequate controls on a permanent basis.
And we
Mr. Chair,
have the enforcement order.
Um,
So
Peter first, then Leah.
just I guess a clarification of legal question. The previous owner had an order of conditions, which he was working on, right? And we got on his case because erosion got away from him and got into the wetlands. Now, we didn't put a stop work order on it, but he had an open order of conditions. We never signed off, closed that order of conditions, so I'm assuming whoever buys the property, it's the same order, so.
But the problem is the order of conditions did not acknowledge that a siltation event had occurred that dropped mud.
The order of conditions never does that. You get the order of
And-
conditions and then the
And-
site and the meeting records show what
And
transpired.
this is where they did not get, when the title transferred, there was nothing on the title that said enforcement order requiring the previous owner to do something.
I'm understanding, but there doesn't need to be something on the record. They bought the property, which had in essence an encumbrance on it of sediment problem.
I think there was
on an active
multiple,
order of conditions.
there was multiple events.
Yes, and so it was
Because I saw people
documented and it wasn't a surprise to any owner who
Okay.
would have bought.
So now I'll switch to Leah's comment.
No, we have an enforcement order now, so going forward, this is a known entity. And that if there is a siltation event, we got you.
And the enforcement order will be guided by what the Shang said, and we'll be reviewing his report of that area later tonight. All right, you have any response, or do you want to continue?
Maybe we can just.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yes, there's a hand raised.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna say, moving forward, we're with you. We also, just for the group's benefit and recollection, we're issued an order of conditions that supersedes any previous order of conditions. RJ, correct me if I'm wrong. That does not mention any kind of wetland cleanup. We're here to work with you. I'm gonna say that from Blue Water as a whole, but just want to get the facts straight.
Thank you.
We don't need to spend a lot of time on these photos, but just kind of describes the operation we did on the 26th, the water clearing.
What I'd ask is that you give Isabella this presentation, and she would be able to make it available on our website for interested citizens.
Yeah. Then just moving on to the December event, a lot more steps. I kind of shared it this way, just to walk us through it. So on December 11th, we had a pretty significant rainfall event. We had about 3.7 inches of rain on site, coupled with a thaw. So it was a lot. And I'll get into the immediate actions we took. But starting on December 12th, Isabella, the conservation agent, was probably sick of getting emails from me, but we immediately started jumping right to site, making improvements. Again, providing frequent email updates. On the 13th, the commission requested a report by the 26th. Between December 18th and 19th, we had another significant rainfall event after some of the improvements we made on site were taken. We inspected every inch of it. Site performed well during that time period.
Okay, let me ask a clarification. Do we have photographic evidence that second event on the 19th, there was no further siltation into the resource area?
First, likely to Isabella, we had photos and videos sent. I didn't see anything.
Justin had the photos from, those were parts of the report that were submitted on the 23rd by them. So
Okay.
Justin had all those photos of the 18th.
So you said I could speak to that as well. Yeah,
Okay.
it's with Justin, being with dark up here.
Yep.
Yes. Potentially, not in this presentation itself, but there is photo.
Okay.
Yeah.
We shared an email with everything, all the pictures and video. Then on the 27th, December 27th, we received the enforcement order. And then on January 3rd, we had a great site visit with the Shang. It was freezing, but we had a large group of people there. It was very, very cool.
Really sick.
But we spent a couple hours together out on site. Had a lot of great recommendations. He was very thoughtful. He took his time to explain things to us. We were very appreciative of that. We had Kevin, we had Dan out on site to accompany us. I was there. We had our superintendent. That visit happened on January 3rd. On the afternoon of January 3rd, we were already implementing some of the recommendations that Shane kind of told us verbally, that I captured here on the next couple of slides. And that you'll see the Shane's report once you have the opportunity to take a peek at that. Next slide. Then just to talk a little bit about kind of the two different buckets, the immediate actions we took starting on the 12th, the day after that rain event. And then the next bucket will be the items we did in response to the Shane's visit. So right after the 12/11 storm event, we've been in constant communication with the conservation agent and immediately took actions to slow both the water velocity and prevent part of the migration, including restaking and repairing the perimeter controls, installing additional waterways around the site, installing added protection at the discharge, installing flocculant logs, installing riprap check dams, installing an additional sediment trap, installing a riprap diversion swale, and accelerating, kind of putting our dense base, accelerating our road stabilization just wherever we can. We stopped all digging, stopped all ground disturbance. We just show some pictures.
Can I ask what you mean by roadway stable? Because to me, that's important, right? Because the water and gravel road just doesn't cut it, but you don't want to put stone down, because it's going to get trees. I don't know what the best practices are.
So we put a, previously, anywhere where there was just soil, like a soil road, we put dense base stone. To kind of,
Is that like processed ground?
That's great. So it's what's called for below the final pavement, base pavement. So replacing that down, which is much more improved from just the natural soil that's in there.
Mike, does that make sense?
yes. Just a couple of pictures of the first set of improvements.
I'm getting access tonight, so.
Yeah, so in this photo here, there was originally, first we just put some check dams, and then we installed this more robust swale. Then additional actions, a lot of these, again, you'll see in the Shanks visit. We got these verbally, we started acting on them. The Shank recommended additional soil stabilization of the areas around the retaining wall base, around the site's southern perimeter and the eastern parking lot slopes. As of today, we have all our topsoil on all these slopes. Tomorrow, weather permitting, we're going to seed and then put erosion matting over all these slopes. So that should drastically cut down on any sediment transmission around the site.
The seed will just be dormant until the growing season.
Under the ground.
Well, they call it snow seeding sometimes. It's just how it goes. What are you gonna put over the seed?
Erosion control mats.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Erosion control matting.
Okay, so it's going to be that kind of greenish kind of. Material.
It'll be like a combo straw matting.
Yeah.
Pin down, and then pin through it as long as we can break through the frozen ground. Tomorrow being at 140 degrees.
Leah is our expert on invasive and native species and other botany issues. What kind of seed mix are you planning on?
Good point, thanks.
Yeah, it is a winter fest that we have.
Okay.
I have to get a specific.
Okay.
Specific
Is
name.
it just like a landscaper mix or something?
Yeah,
Just gonna
it-
go down?
Meant
Okay.
for germinating a little bit earlier than our final seed mix.
Be good if you can throw some clover on. That's always good to do. That's great erosion control because it's drought tolerant. So when everything else is brown, that'll be green.
So you know, taking.
Taking a note, add clover.
All you need is some white Dutch clover. It comes inoculated so that it'll stay down a little bit better. Just, they're tiny seeds. But
You can get Leah's contact information from Isabella or her after the meeting. I'm sure she's available for a phone call tomorrow as you're figuring out what to put there.
So in addition to the stabilization, we installed an additional check dam on the east side of the building, kind of up north, closer to the site drive. Pierce, our site work subcontractor, has been running around the site, cleaning out all the storm structures. It was the Shane noted, an eroded hole, slightly beyond the OMB. You'll see it in the next picture, but water was just rushing down through that hole. We lined that and we filled that. And Leo, being the invasive species expert, you'll find this interesting. There was one Japanese knotweed, only one.
just one.
Just one. We were flabbergasted by it. And Dan and DeShank both said, rip that out by the root before that
Yeah.
spreads further. So we tackled that while we were out there. And then we also removed the liner at the discharge to give the fines a better opportunity to settle outside of that discharge. Let's go through some pictures. So one of the main things we'll also read about in the Fang's report is this structure right here. On the 12/11 event, we didn't have all of that base around that basin, nor did we have our grow finished at this pipe connection. So sediment during that 12/11 event was able to get in here and needed to be cleaned out. This picture on the right-hand side That's, you'll see in the Shank's report, a photo of a hole. That's the hole being lined and filled. The photo on the left is just an example of one of the areas of stabilization that the Shang recommended. Then the photo on the right, there were concerns when we were all standing in the building pad. We're obviously not ready to pour concrete just yet, so it's still just kind of muddy in there. One of the concerns was that sediment could migrate down the slope towards the backfill zone and out and underneath the panels. So the team, a little bit out of sequence, grouted the bottom of all the panels to kind of act as a stop for any sediment leading into the southern parking area.
Question?
Back to the deep manholes. Did you end up by measuring the depth of silt and cleaning them out?
We cleaned them out. I don't know if we measured.
Yeah, we did not measure them. We pretty much got them cleaned in that afternoon after this sidewalk and Monday and Tuesday of this week. Right off the bat, getting that cleaned out. We did not measure what we had down.
Wasn't that one of the recommendations from the Shang to give you an estimate or a measurement of the amount of silt in them?
We had just got the report today. When we were with the Shang, kind of the loud and clear message was just get it.
So was the silt all the way up to the bottom of the outflow pipe, or how much silt was would you assume?
It was not up to the pipe that was leaving. The main structure that was photographed there where we did identify an area that was not grouted around the pipe, there was a significant enough sediment to shovel out that structure. Other structure did we see significant sediment? If I had to speak to it, I would say a few inches, but that would just be based off of some photos I saw.
I have a follow-up question. One of the representations that has been made is that the siltation event, when it occurred, was very fine. That was not trapped. When you were digging stuff out, can you tell whether that's coarse or fine sediment that's in there?
At that point, slightly, you can see it at the surface, probably looking a little bit more like slime.
Okay.
But at that point, it's settled to the bottom and it kind of just becomes a pile of sediment if it continues.
So the heavy stuff ended up there and the fine stuff flowed down and caused the discharge.
I guess just, yeah. And this one will just take a second to talk about, but this is just an overall site plan, some repetitive photo files, so you kind of see the different areas.
It's just have some places in all the locations that we kind of just talked through. Those that, okay. A luxury of being out there right now.
Could I ask a favor? So maybe it'll come from the Shanks, but could you on that map show where that washout, because it must have been beyond the erosion control, right?
On that washout there eroded.
Yes.
Eroding hole, that's true.
Yeah, because that concerns me, an eroding hole, it's like water, where.
Yeah, it's, Mr. Kaufman, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, there's a red box just above the photograph. They were location.
Right, now, he's got this mark, sinkhole, but it is beyond the buff for the erosion control, right? So that's the problem to me, right? Because is the water getting there internally or did it get over what caused that
I
sinkhole?
think from observation, I think this is a historic problem. In New York time, that happens to be being observed. That there was inside the hole, for example, there were a lot of mosses and other fragile plants that didn't seem to be disturbed by any recent water.
Right, I'm sorry, I wasn't on the sidewalk, but I'm wondering if that was filled area. Usually that's a sign that got filled and didn't get compacted and eventually it's going to wash out. So, but I don't, that predated but it's outside of the work. But now you've got, that's where the erosion's popping up. So you've got to do work there. So it's just a red flag. Thank you.
Looks like there's a couple of mature trees on it. Doesn't look like it was spilled before.
Well, how many years ago? It's like.
Doesn't take long to grow moss. I grow moss.
No, but it doesn't take long to wipe it off either. So
Right.
it's not, it doesn't appear to have been a place in which there has
Where it
been
was washed out.
substantial water flows. That's why.
And the very last comment I'll offer is we've stopped putting stormwater pipe in, we've stopped putting fire hydrant line in. We're pretty on site, we're pretty much past the most disturbing part of the project. If we're allowed to resume those activities, we're marching right towards paving and further stabilization and further improvements on site. All the major cuts and fills are done.
Wouldn't paving actually increase the amount of water flow?
Paving would help us better control both the water flow and the sediment migration across the site. Be able to direct water better, and there'd be nothing for the water to bring along with it as a.
It would encapsulate it, but it's also, pavement does also speed up water as well. So kind of a. Okay.
Yeah,
What's
wash.
to say?
Should we say?
but that's where we would be able to rely on Deshang as our expert to say whether once they pave and the velocity increases, if their infrastructure would be able to contain the faster velocity.
Are all the panels up right now?
No, sir. About 85%.
27 left.
27.
Are these port in place or are you importing them?
No, these are precast
Oh, good.
water panels from Fab. So that the kind of the general order of operations is we finish most of our precast panels. We might leave a couple left out for access into the main building pad area. And we immediately start with our steel column installation. Then we would do our joists. Then we would do the roof. And once we get to the roof, that helps the site a lot because we're no longer pouring water on a muddy exposed footprint. We're now catching the water on the roof. We're directing it straight into the water system. So that'll be a big milestone for the site.
Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, this,
If I
Yep,
could,
go
Ms.
ahead.
Goodman. So I think what you're going to do, at least at some point, is go through Deshang's report. I just wanted to speak a little bit on something Mr. Coffin said earlier in this meeting. I expect that if you do not, even if you do not ask, we will volunteer to provide you with a written, not so much response and point to counterpoint, but rather response. So you can have a very clear-eyed sense, even before we get to anything like a certificate of compliance or removal of the enforcement, as to what we will be doing, when we will be doing it, how we will be able to verify that we have done it. Again, we don't think it's a use of your or our time for us to ask you to trust us until such time as you either send us another enforcement order or you give us a certificate of compliance. So we think clarity is important. So I'm giving you this to give you a sense of where we are, but make no mistake about it. We'll give you a thorough plan that will hopefully be useful for all of you.
Good question. I like the idea that you're putting the roof on as you go. Is it fully roofed or is it just the steel decking?
Yes, sir. So there'll be B decking, metal decking, and then there'll be like a membrane PP. Type roof.
But at this point, is it just the steel decking?
At this point, there's no roof. We
So it's not- it's not a water
right
still
now,
down here.
yeah, right now it's.
Because that was one of my concerns is once that steel decking goes down, now you're channeling all the water to one location, most likely the back of the building. I don't imagine you putting center drains now to move by it.
I do, yes, we are. This is,
Just like
this
center
is drains down the center of the building, as well as the perimeter. It's drained internally, all throughout.
So all the water pitches to the center.
yeah, that was,
It pitched to the perimeter and to the center, basically, as in
Okay, so you got-
quadrants throughout, yeah.
that was in the building plan that went before the planning board
Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
Not just, it matters to how much water.
It's a big roof. They need to deal with it all.
Yeah,
over.
it is.
All right.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
Just, have you guys had a chance to look at Deshang's report yet?
Briefly, we went through like.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're gonna take his recommendations and send us a report back that says we're doing this, that Deshang suggested.
I don't think there's anything in the report that was different than what we talked about on site.
Okay, before we get to Deshang's report and we will do that, I need to do my talking about what I did and why.
It's always about you.
No, it's about the enforcement order and how I worked on the enforcement order. So what I would like to open the discussion with is, could you explain what activities have happened on site since the enforcement order was issued on the 26th and today? The nature of the construction work we've done.
So the only construction work we've done, in addition to the actions kind of we took to help the site's condition, has been panel erection, road stabilization, but that's kind of in this bucket.
Yeah, panel erection's been the marquee item.
Okay.
Besides that, we've had people there starting to get steel moved around within that building pad. Trying to
Okay.
prepare for it.
So all of the work that you have done, other than remediation, was on the building pad area?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I need to do my formal legal stuff, which is an explanation for the other commissioners who changed and also for the citizens. At the December 26th meeting, the expectation was that the commission was issuing an enforcement order to stop work for everything on site. We got response from the property owner, and I consulted with Town Council Karis North, and her advice guided my decision. I made a decision that because of the uncertainty as to the jurisdiction of the Concom as to whether we could issue a stop work order for the entire site as a result of the stormwater issue and not restricted to stormwater, that I would modify the enforcement order to allow them to continue work strictly within the building pad. They sent us an email at the time laying out what they were doing. Karis North reviewed this. I discussed the matter with her, and we agreed that as chair, I agreed that the contracting and the work that you just described could take place. That email is available for the commission. If interested, we can make that available to citizens as well. So that is why I took an action as chair, because it was not something that would be, we weren't going to be able to have another meeting before it would impact their workflow. Karis, I had hoped that she would be able to be here tonight to clarify that. She's traveling at this very moment, however, and wasn't able to make it. I have been working with our town administrator, Jeremy, and Isabella, and my expectation is that we will work with Karis so that at a future meeting, she will be able to come and we'll have a conversation about exactly when and under what conditions we can issue a stop work, not just for stormwater aspects, for an entire development site. So in this particular case, on being guided by town council, I made a decision to allow them to deviate from our initial stop work order to work on the pad. This is not binding on other sites or even on this site moving forward. So I'll now entertain questions from the commission about how that process played out between me, Karis, Jeremy, and Isabella.
You've done good, Carl.
Okay, and Mike, you said that you would support that as well? Okay.
Absolutely.
Going forward, that's my only question. I mean, with the enforcement order and everything, they're working on the building as we speak. They're gonna do are we allowing walls to be put up with it?
The agreement that I made last Tuesday is that they would continue to be working within the building pad. You heard them saying that there's other work on site that they'd like to do, but they have not done it. And at this meeting, we would modify the enforcement order to permit them to continue work. And one of the things we will be discussing after we review Deshang's report is we can add language to the December 26th enforcement order to say what kind of monitoring they'll do. We can have them doing it. We can discuss whether we pay Deshang or we ask them to pay Deshang for us to do ongoing monitoring, similar to the way that we have consultants monitoring for like the Misco Hills, the Misco Springs subdivision.
If I.
Yep.
First of all, if you ask, we will pay.
Okay.
No problem. we have no interest in.
Okay.
Look, we stumbled a little bit as Sean.
And we did as well.
And we don't want to do that again.
Okay.
So transparency and work together.
Yeah, I also, as chair, approved the invoice from DeShag, and we paid the bill for him to go out the other Friday. So with that, if there are no further questions, we can move on to a presentation of DeShang's report. Isabella, are you able to bring that up?
You all have it.
Yeah, it's in our packet, but then you can bring it up for the recording and for people. Did you print out all of the pictures as well? No.
They have.
Right. And
Does anyone need a copy? I've got one on my computer.
they have the first 2 pages, and the rest of it are going to be the pictures that Isabella will be putting up on the screen.
As Sean said, we all met on site last Friday. The chief was there, and his report encompasses everything we talked about. He gave some background on the site, and talked about the different areas we inspected. We looked at the flared end of the outfall, the subsurface infiltration system, and I think the main takeaway from Bashing is that that outfall shouldn't have had stormwater coming out, because that's the final stormwater system. So during construction, water isn't being diverted there. So the fact that water is coming out of it and that it's turbid was what, we went around and tried to figure out which catch basins or manholes were leaking or not sealed entirely. And as Sean said, they found one catch basin that they identified and cleaned, and then got it sealed. The other ones, so a lot of this is just describing, what we saw. The Shane recommends laying seed and stabilizing all slopes that are still open. Nothing's too much. They also went out into the wetland. I think Dan with LNC Environmental also went, and they observed staining in about 1 1/16 inch silt, so not much. And I think the Shang's recommendation is to continue monitoring moving forward. If any cleanup were to happen, that would take place in drier conditions. Yeah, necessary cleanup conducted. Cleanup at the discharge point.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just because words are important. So point 1, the turbid is the flared outfall, the water appears in the pillar. There is a second eroding channel. The turbid water.
What page are you reading?
Page 2. And point 1.
Okay.
The turbid water traveled about 200 feet to the Mill Plain Brook and stained loose and low growth ground cover with various silt sediment. The thickest area is about 1/16. Now, that's 1/16 of silt. I would not call that a thin layer of silt. A 1/16 of an inch.
1/16 of an inch?
You wouldn't call that thin?
No, a quarter.
This is.
Yeah, I know it's.
What picture you sent?
But silt.
1/16 of an inch is thin.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't.
Now,
I'm not going to get into an argument about metrics.
so it's significant. A 1/16 of an inch for 200 feet over how wide? Yes, so it's, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But I wouldn't just say it's stained leaves. To leave a 1/16 of an inch that's more than staining, is my point.
I think if I could, Mr. Coughlin, the Shane's observation is that was the thickest area. And having been there, I think what we mostly observed was that there was large portions of the area that had none, some which had staining, some which were as thick as a 1/16 of an inch.
Great.
That's this area.
I guess I only bring that up because your comment in the letter that you said that there was no significant erosion or no significance in that, I don't agree with that statement. So that's,
Next time Deshang is here, we can have a conversation with him about his definition of significant, and you can get your
there we go.
definition in line with what wetlands
I
and
want the
siltation
education.
specialists say.
Lawyers love to argue about words like significant and material. All I'm here to tell you is we're here and we are interested in making sure that we get things right going forward,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so any other questions on Deshang's report? Yes.
I have a question. The trap A was a water retention area, correct? But it was mentioned that it was put on ledge. So there was some erosion over the top of the ledge.
This is the one that. This is the ledge that's
The
below.
northwest, yeah, it's the northwest corner of the site.
Yeah.
You saw.
Yeah, it's below. So you need to explain that to them, the ledge is below.
Doesn't one cancel out the other if it's ledge?
Here's the photo.
The ledge is below, it's down gradient.
You can see that the grass coverage has eroded where that ledge is, so that, which I don't know if that was placed and seeded. You guys are prior,
Yeah,
but
we did, believe we did loom and seed that. Problem is we just couldn't get a thick enough layer of loom.
It's hard to grow things on rock
Yeah,
because it gets really hot and really dry.
Water flow, it was put a water flow.
And there's erosion.
And that was, yeah, and that's where we saw basically wipe out, what was the top of that ledge there.
It would make sense. I
You
mean,
can fry an egg on it pretty easily, but growing
Freeze one.
stuff is hard, yeah.
I believe Deshang's suggestion was that we pull back some of the soils, try to stabilize them, because I get them to stay on top of the.
drawing is just adding stone there and leaving it exposed.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I will ask something that I've been wondering about ever since the December 16th rain event. I agree with there being a whole lot of rain right after a thaw, but when you did the stormwater management plan with the planning board that we were participating in, you said it was designed for a 100-year storm. So my question is, were there specific things that happened on site which were done yet or were done incorrectly that led to the siltation and fines flowing in during the December storms?
Because that wasn't a 100-year storm.
No, it wasn't a year storm. I think one thing we could talk about is what signs the, call it northeast, that on the northeast side, we had a depression area that was kind of acting as a bowl. We were in the middle of reworking the road. And that kind of changed the way that the water had been flowing on site. So we felt after the December 11th event, that change in water flow direction could have definitely contributed to what we saw on the 11th, which is why a little north of that, closer to the site entrance, we dug that other sediment trap to catch that water before it even hits that roadway area.
Okay, I'm not technical. Do people who are follow that? And does it sound reasonable?
Well, isn't that green square supposed to be a settling basin? Don't you have a temporary detention area?
Go on over and
Sure, which, anyway.
go on over and show it.
Do you have a report?
How much you can have, where are your settling? 2 here and 1 there?
This, no, this is, these are not settling areas on here. This is what this trap B that Shane pulled out here. That was our trap B. Yeah, that was one of the items. That was one of the items after I kind of.
We're talking about this area here.
Okay, so was there does the plan call for a settling area during construction?
Yeah, Tom can speak to that.
Yeah.
It basically, it's a fill area.
Yeah, so we're it's noted as trap B there, in the location where that's placed. pole that's being mentioned, I believe, is down towards that, I'll call it spider webbing of storm structures that we have there. That corner calls for a sediment trap. Part of what we were constructing in that area, that again, being referenced as the bowl over there was, there was fill placement that took place from early on. Later into the project, as we got into installing the storm system, that storm system was where your water was being trapped. So then we started to disturb to put that line of storm in. And that shift in that basin location, that trap B location was the new location to intercept that water that was flowing and previously being stored in that, again, spider web area of storm structures. So during the time of installing that and the transfer kind of where we were going to be trapping and detaining water on site, that's kind of right around that 11th time frame.
Got your time. Frame.
Okay, so given that we have identified a gap in your planning and implementation, I believe one of the things that we can add when we modify the enforcement order is that we would request that Deshang be working closely with your people as you're moving dirt from place to place to make sure that you don't have a similar getting caught with your pants down. That he would be there to advise you on local conditions and work with the engineers because of his expertise in stormwater management and siltation control. So does that seem like a reasonable thing to be asking them to pay Deshang for? Okay.
Well, they are.
Yep. I'm glad that you're as impressed by him as we are.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Okay, given that, I'm now going to open the floodgates and ask members of the public if they wish to come up to the chair and ask questions or make comments to the commission and for the applicant. Likewise, if there's anyone online, if they would raise their hands. Or if you wish, I can try and clarify further why the enforcement order was modified from stop work on the entire site to allowing them to work within the building path. Okay, come on up.
When you modified the stop work order, we weren't aware of that. Where would we have found that information? Because we were wondering why things were going on. And I don't want to have to stop my work to call in or email Isabel and find out what's going on. We should be able to look that up somewhere. Isn't that right?
This is another case where the fact this happened between Christmas and New Year's got in the way of things. I spoke with town council on Tuesday and worked with the property owners on what their stop work order was going to be doing. I then wrote up a short paragraph and sent it to the town administrator and town council saying, is this language that is appropriate to be sent out to members of the public? It's because they were on vacation and not available. We weren't able to do that. Under the normal course of events, if this were happening during the week, that would have been posted. It would have been something Isabella would have been able to send out to abutters. I might even have put it on Facebook, or at least reference that there was a statement on the town website that people could be seeing that. So I'm aware of the lack of information, but I was hamstrung. I didn't want to say anything publicly without getting an approval from town council and the town administration.
Understood. Thank you.
So any others? So I believe now that we can start deliberating on what modifications to make to the enforcement order. I proposed one about having the Shang do monitoring. I think another hot item would be what to do about the existing siltation in the wetlands area that was left over from the previous site owner. I get the impression from Deshang's report that he says punt that until a couple months when they'd actually be closer to deciding whether to go in and dig it out by hand or with machines or whatnot. So what I would recommend is that we wait and then ask DeShang to prepare an evaluation in a couple months as to what to do with the area. The major concern is what's more invasive, leaving it there and letting it wash downstream over the next couple of years, or go in and remove it. And I believe we could expect DeShang to make a recommendation that we would be able to trust.
I go along.
Mr. I have no problem. I trust DeShang, but I want that on his radar screen. I don't want it just to,
Okay,
so it needs to be addressed.
so I would say that we would put in the enforcement order some language that says that we would expect DeShang to work with the site management on a specific date. So when would be a good date? March 1st, April 1st, May 1st?
Birthday, April 22nd.
Well, if you wanted to evaluate a wetland for potential cleanup, it should be dry conditions, that's not till the summer.
Okay, so we will say that we'll start talking about that being in his scope of work as of April 1st. And April 1st, we'll begin discussing when he would actually schedule an evaluation.
There's a time to document. It's late winter, early spring, so they can get out there, see it, document where it is
Before the leaves come on.
before
The vegetation comes up, yeah.
and hides.
So you would ask that DeShang go out and do a survey of the area abutting 14 Talbot Drive, where we've seen serious sedimentation issues in the past couple of years.
and
Okay,
Give us his recommendation out of hand.
okay.
The other thing to consider is the spring thaw, how that's going to affect any more or less erosion.
That's exactly what we're asking DeShang to do, to work closely with their construction team to make sure they don't get caught with their pants down again.
Is that more?
Yeah, they couldn't expect the December thaw, right, in addition to 3 inches, but they certainly should be expecting to have a thaw and be able to look at week out for weather forecasts to see when it's going to happen.
I think my big thing about the enforcement order is just to make sure that we don't have any more events. That's what I need.
That's our goal too.
Okay, so the other thing, we are on the 26th was a total stop work order, which I modified as chair with input from town council. Is the commission now comfortable that we've gotten their attention, lifting the stop work order and allowing them to resume operations in close work with DeShang?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, any other? Okay, so, yeah, okay. Come on up closer because the mic may have trouble hearing you.
My name is Diane Howell. I live at 13 Edwards Road. I look out my kitchen window. I can see everything that's going on. And my understanding of this, that the cease and desist order was kind of modified a bit, but I saw trucks, huge Barney trucks drive in and drive out. And they were dumping equipment, and they had all the other types of equipment there. But if they weren't supposed to be working there, but they could work on the building, which they were doing because we have this humongous red crane back there. What were all these trucks doing?
Okay, so the work that I modified to allow them to do was to work on the building pad. You're saying that you saw trucks with fill coming in, so if you could come up and address that?
That was part of what we had shown there with the stone placement down the roadways. Those were trucks coming in with the desiccated aggregate we're talking about to help stabilize that natural soil road and prevent that from running off. And
But it looks like it's all coming along.
the rear of all our properties, and yes, that's
Yes, like Christine's house. Looked like they were fixing up her backyard behind
so
her.
that was the road that wraps the entirety of the building That's that rear lot and the entirety of the, I'll call it the western side of the site there. That was trucks coming in with the dense graded aggregate that would be in place, and that was all that was being put down from basically where you enter the site, that Wood Street all the way, wrapping the entirety of the property.
And that's supposed to help when all
It's-
the rain comes and.
It helps
stuff will wash
stabilize,
away.
yeah, it helps stabilize what was natural soil roads we were running on at the time. Albeit we wouldn't have placed it at this time, it's a definitely helped for the stabilization effort, as opposed to natural soil.
So if I can put that in my language based on the emails we exchanged. The dump trucks coming in were doing work specifically designed to address the erosion and siltation and stormwater issues that we had on the 13th and then the 17th. Okay, which is why that would be considered allowable even under the regular. A stop work order says don't do any more building. Doesn't say you're not allowed to go in there and keep things from getting worse. Okay. Okay, so, are there? So let me just get back to that. So the commission is comfortable with removing any and all stop work order and letting the, site continue normal, construction operations.
Yes, but the enforcement order needs to stand so that we have recourse
Well, yeah.
if anything else happens.
Under the supervision of.
Right, so what will happen is we'll modify, Isabella, you can tell me how do we do this? We modify the existing EO or come up with a new one? Okay, so the existing one would remove the stop work order and we would include something. One, Deshang will be responsible for monitoring on a very close basis and ensuring there are no further pants down incidents. Second, that as of April 1st, Deshang will come back not with a plan on how to clean out, but a timeline for when they would be doing an investigation and then any proposed cleanup. Is there something else that we would
Can
like?
we add one other thing?
Yep. I saw Tim first.
So,
Buzzer beater.
You Duchesne monitoring on a very close basis. Why don't we narrow that down? Like, should he be doing site visits every 2 weeks or?
After every rain event?
Yeah, I mean, something, you know.
What's
some kind
the standard for the SWIP report? I think that if something triggers a
30 days.
if something triggers an
No,
EP,
it's 2 weeks.
right.
I think.
The EP, the SWIP is an EPA thing and it specifically says after certain kinds of storms, you do a report. I think that's what we would be able to base on.
Every 2 weeks and or within 48 hours after a half-inch rainstorm.
Can we also add a caveat that if we do have another event, that we can stop work until that's fixed?
Well, what would you define as an event?
Let's cross that when we get there.
Duchesne can report on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't want this happening again. And if it happens again, you need to stop. You need to fix it. And, that's what your focus should be. Stop building, stop putting the building up, fix what's going on with the sedimentation event. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. That's where everything needs to be prioritized.
Okay, thank you. Any other modifications to the EO that people might suggest, or if you have
We
any
decided,
suggestions?
they said they had no problem paying,
Right,
picking up the bill, so let's decide that now, so there's no question.
okay,
You have authority, general law section, I can't recall off the top of my head.
she probably,
Enforcing.
53G.
Just, we're happy to, reach some agreement,
yep, okay.
So you want a motion to modify the order to allow them to work under the supervision or the.
Well, I would phrase it as remove the stop work portion of the EO and add a section that says that they are responsible for paying for Deshang to monitor their activities, and when he proposes something, if they don't do it, they have to have a good reason to not do it and come and explain it, why they're not doing it at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll make that.
Well, yeah, if Deshang, this is similar to the way we're working with Deshang at Sylvan Springs. Deshang issues a report saying, I think the builder should do the following things. If the builder doesn't do them, I've put the builder on notice that if he doesn't follow them, he has to come in and explain why he doesn't think he has to follow the recommendations.
We'd be very see of, but coordinate with this or otherwise, is reporting all that sort of thing. I'm happy to defer to him.
Yeah, I'm expecting that Isabella will take these vague sentences we're saying out loud and come up with something in writing. Who on your team should she correspond with? Okay.
One of us.
Okay. And then,
But I would maybe just pose to Deshang if he wants, does he want to go out every 2 weeks if that's necessary, or does he want to just go for every checkpoint or?
depends how much he wants to get paid.
Well, stop right there. We want him.
I want it thorough.
But
There you go. So
I'm
pick a number, how many times we want
I'm
to go
okay
out
with
there.
it every 2 weeks and after a rainstorm.
I can put that issue to bed.
My feeling is I'd like to propose to Deshang that he follow the EPA SWIP recommendations. If he comes back and says, oh no, I only need to go out once a month, then he can dialogue with us on that.
Peter, would you like to see it happen every 2 weeks?
I would.
I think,
And I would.
Okay?
I think 2 weeks is long enough in between where you seem to be moving fairly quickly on the project.
If there's a
There'll
significant
probably be
rainfall,
just visits.
if there is a significant rainfall, you should at least go out and check things.
Well, that's it, every 2 weeks and within 24 or 48 hours after happens.
Exactly. So we all agree on that?
Is there a conversion between inches of snow and rain?
Yes,
There is-
1 inch equals a foot of snow.
But is that in the SWIP regulations?
Snow is not a problem. Snow is not a problem.
Until it melts.
Okay,
We got
I ended
out
up
there
for a
in
school
Arctic
holiday.
conditions the other day. He wants to run the snow to the week about,
Oh, this morning, nasty.
okay. Something else, Isabella, you can discuss is whether whether the Wetland Protection Act regulations allow us to charge them for the work Deshang has already done, or if they're interested in compensating us for it.
We honestly got a lot of time about this.
Okay,
I have a question.
that'll put the money back in our wetlands account.
Since we are talking about snow events at this point, do you have a snow storage location on site?
It's on the building plan.
Yes.
Yeah, that we talked.
Just-
And in fact, during the permitting process with us and the planning board, we actually had to move one of the snow dumps, so it was farther away from the wetlands. Yep.
We are gonna get snow.
We have a question?
They're gonna move it out of it before it melts. Because if it melts, it's just gonna
Okay,
probably come down into my backyard.
okay, so are any of the current snow dumping areas going to cause snow melt to flow into adjacent properties? The butters,
Would not anticipate so. We can
Okay.
prepare that, we can prepare based on what the plan shows it and based on the actual conditions out there, make sure Shane is also in line that it wouldn't do.
okay.
what she-
So if you could make a note for when Deshang is doing his next report, if he can analyze the locations of the current snow locations, specifically geared towards whether it'll impact the Edmonds Road abutters. Any other enforcement order discussion? Okay, I think we can wrap this up and get to the
Quick run away.
downside parts of the meeting.
So is there a motion to?
I made the motion.
I second.
Yeah. And the motion is to modify as discussed in our previous conversation, and we're expecting our conservation agent to clean up. the
ESP
light.
training is down.
What I would ask is that when you come up, when you're finished working out the language, then send it to me for my review. And then, as chair, I would sign that. And then it would get reviewed at the next Concom meeting. And approved and affirmed, yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, can you review the motion one more time?
Okay, the motion is for Isabella to work with the site management on language for the enforcement order that does the following things. One, removes the existing stop work that was done on the 26th, and then the modification that I made to the stop work the following week. Two, to say that DeShang will be monitoring the site on the same timetable as the EPA SWIP time monitoring. Three, that as of April 1st, DeShang will work with the site management on preparing a timeline, not a plan, a timeline for investigating removing the existing siltation in Muddy Brook on the western edge of the parcel. And I believe that was it.
No. If another siltation event happens, we can stop work.
We don't need to have that in the language.
Okay, well,
That's a good.
okay, good.
So is that, and then
That works for me, man.
is there a second?
Second,
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I,
Aye. Abstentions? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
thanks.
So now we can go back. Agenda item number 10, 35 Hartford Avenue East, review notification of property being withdrawn from chapter 61A, as the town would have right of first refusal and would solicit the input from the Conservation Commission. My understanding is that the department heads of the different town agent committees and boards that are interested in this sort of thing, including Isabella, are still discussing the matter internally. The expectation is that a future time they would prepare a recommendation for the Concom and for all of the other relevant town boards and agencies as to what we should do. Their plan is to build a couple houses in the northern part. It would not impact the southern part where Muddy Brook and and what would be useful to have conservation land in about existing town-owned land. So there's going to be further discussion about what are you planning on doing down there? And maybe you can do something else that doesn't require us to go through the whole right of first refusal and interrupt your.
Well, if you offer us, what, 550,000 for 25 acres, right?
Fairly inexpensive.
So the town's got to decide whether they want us.
And the conversation is,
No more land.
well, you get two different, you're on that side. There are a lot of other people saying buy all the land and keep it from turning into houses and which would increase our school committee assessment, school budget assessment. Anyway, as I said, that's currently being discussed internally, and so we do not need to weigh in on that until we get something from our specialists. All right, agenda item 11, updates from the chair. My update would be basically what I said during about how I modified the intent of the commission's stop work order on advice of town council after receiving input from town council. Conservation agent report.
I've been sick. I don't have that much. Sorry.
You better?
Getting there.
Yeah, my son's been out all week too.
I spent New Year's Eve and New Year's Day in the hospital, in the ER with a stomach bug.
Well, you can save that for good welfare of the, save that for good welfare of the committee.
Thank you for the mask.
Okay.
For what bug?
Lake Nipmuc Task Force is on hold for a while. Land Use Committee, I saw either a notice of a meeting or they actually had a meeting, which was it?
We're scheduling one for in 2 weeks.
Okay, and so they'll probably be getting involved in the 61A discussion as well. Okay, agenda item number 12, review and approve a whole lot of minutes. I went and looked through them and wow, that was a blast from the past. People we don't have. Amelia was on the board for some of these. And, yeah,
I didn't get a printer.
well, it's, like I said, I gave people another 2 weeks to look at them, so it's on you to look at.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Well, I get
motion
to
To accept the 9 sets of meeting minutes from June 2021 to March 2020.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Not so much on this, but it pertains to help us not get in this position. Number one is I have a question, how many more back minutes do we have floundering around? And going forward, I was gonna save this till agenda item 13 ties into this. Going forward, I would like to see this week's minutes at our next meeting. Next meeting's minutes, meeting after that, because I would have appreciated seeing the 24th, 26th meeting minutes here to remind me what was said.
Okay.
Yeah, I fell behind with the 12th and 26th.
That's fine,
so-
I'm not being,
He does send them
Critical at
out.
all.
They are in an email.
Yeah, no, I'll have those two done. The senior worker who's doing the backlog, there's 10 more from 2022. So she'll get those, she's starting on those next week. And she did them all pretty quickly, so I'd expect potentially 10 more at the next meeting, plus
that's fine.
delays and the
What I'm
last.
trying to make is, it would help
Reference.
all the members to remember what was
She
said
usually,
to get these.
Mike, she usually puts them in our email for the meeting, so they're
I
there,
know that.
so we can review them.
I'm just making a
Oh,
statement.
I couldn't even get in today.
Please
I'm
don't
getting confused.
Sure that.
I think I always try to have it, but by law, you're not supposed to go 3 meetings without the minutes from the last 3. But yeah, not there yet.
Okay, here's my response as one, chair who monitors her work, and 2, the guy who did the agendas and blew off the minutes during this time period, and 3, the guy who's now doing the minutes and agendas for the bylaws review committee. Isabella is assigned to us for 30 hours a week. She's a 40-hour-a-week employee, but 10 of those hours are assigned to another project. Jeremy is her manager. I provide input to her and Jeremy and say, you know, out of all of the things that you can do for the Conservation Commission, do this and not that, and put those down at the bottom of your list. I need the ability at any particular time to say, you know what? I need you to work on preparing something about 23 Cape Road or the latest project from Kevin. So no, those are more important than preparing the minutes because those are things we actually have to discuss at the meeting. So I agree that it would be nice to have it, but I don't want to lock her into having to commit to doing them every single time.
Well, it sounds like we need a 40-hour week.
We're getting to, she's.
I do have on my, I have asked Jeremy for a meeting to talk about exactly that.
Again, statement should be giving you ammunition
Yes.
to ask for that.
The approach that we are trying to take right now, Isabella is performing the duties of both a conservation agent and a conservation clerk. There is a lot of pushing by me and some of the other departments and committees to create a clerk position who would be preparing agendas, minutes, and public notice stuff, all of the other things that are clerical in nature that gets paid at a much lower hourly rate than we pay our agent for her expertise and college degree.
Makes sense to me.
So yes, that's something,
Would they be done as good as she would do them?
Perhaps not, but hey,
we would be able to, again, as chair, I would provide feedback to Jeremy as the manager of the person doing the activity if I felt that there were shortcomings in their output.
Isabella's, you do 30 hours a week, is that what you do?
I'm 40, but I'm technically 10 hours for the energy coordinator.
Oh,
But there's not that much going on for the, there are a lot of backups.
Again, that's between her and
Yep, I'm
the
just
the
asking.
town
Just
administrator.
asking.
I'm employed 40 hours.
Yes, right. And we are allocated 30 hours a week by Jeremy, and then I have a lot of say as to what she's doing those 30 hours. If someone else becomes chair, they get to get involved in those conversations.
Again, as chairman, that's why I'm making a statement.
Yes.
Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not criticizing
Yep.
her work.
That's okay.
I'm making a statement saying, I believe having the last meeting's minutes in front of you at the next meeting would be a very valuable tool.
Yes.
So what I'm doing is I'm giving you a tool
Yep.
to go and tell who you have to talk to, that the members of the committee are making these statements.
If necessary,
I'd be
I'll
happy-
bring it up to the finance
and I'd
committee.
be
I
happy
will
to
go,
accompany
and I will go to the finance committee and say they need. For people watching, we have someone on the finance committee here. All right, so any
Really?
further discussion on reviewing and approving minutes as has been moved and seconded? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
oh,
Aye. Abstentions? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, good and welfare for the commission. Leah, do you have anything about keep the pesticide thing? Any
Not
action
yet.
on that? Okay,
But I'm trying to ask Nibby's mom, if she'll come on Zoom and talk to us about rodenticides and such.
okay,
So, because she's really, I think she tells it like it is better than I could ever. So,
okay. Anything else people want to bring up or they've noticed around town? Okay,
Notice around town.
well, we drive around, if you look at a site, hey, that shouldn't be happening without a permit. Then this is where we would be able to ask Isabella an open meeting to investigate. All right, agenda item 14, any items that we showed up? The one thing that happened was the 2-year extension, and we covered that previously in the meeting. So, given that, we're now ready for agenda item 15, that most blessed of moments.
go ahead, Peter.
ooh, I vote to adjourn.
No, you motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No discussion on this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. See you in 2 weeks.